Hello and welcome again to the Writer Review. This is Eric Writer, and this week we're going to be taking a look back at the 2007 comedy drama titled The Darjeeling Limited. Now, The Darjeeling Limited runs for an hour and 31 minutes long. It is directed by Wes Anderson. It is produced by Wes Anderson, Scott Rudin, Roman Coppola, and Lydia Dean Pilcher. The script was done by Wes Anderson, Roman Coppola, and Jason Schwartzman. The score was done by Satyajit Ray, the cinematography by Robert Yeoman, and the editing was done by Andrew Weisblum. And the stars of the movie are Owen Wilson, Adrian Brody, Jason Schwartzman, Angelica Huston, Waris Ahluhalia, Amara Karan, Wallace Wolodarski, Camilla Rutherford, Barbet, Schroeder, and Irrfan Khan. Plus, it also features cameos from Bill Murray and Natalie Portman. Now, people have over the years been ostracizing director Wes Anderson for overdoing his movies with the emotional integrity with the characters in his movies. But it's movies like these that enriches reasons as to why a certain character or characters feels the way they should, and their emotions are often conflicted with awkward, uncontrollable, mind-boggling situations they must corral to and take charge. An example, or two examples of Anderson's craft work where the emotions come to play are depicted in The Royal Tenenbaums and The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou, which was, of course, badly panned for being advanced in intellect. Not just that there's anything wrong with that. What's ironic is that Anderson likes to question intellect, especially in paralyzing predicament. Anderson truly pushes the envelope further towards his characters through their emotions to the brink of madness by analyzing what drives them to be the way they are. Anderson makes no apologies, and that'll do fine with me because the Darjeeling Limited is custom made for those who have the pleasure in thinking. This is a thinking person's movie, and Wes Anderson, if you've seen any of his works or appreciate any of his works, you will get the gist of enjoying this movie just as well as the other ones like Rushmore, The Royal Tenenbaums, The Life Aquatic of Steve Zissou. These kinds of movies are truly what makes this movie more than just the standard fare, formulaic, by the lines stuff that has been done to death. He likes to reinvent himself in every movie he does, and I think here in this movie he does it quite effectively. Okay, so here's how the story goes. The story is centered around the Whitman brothers. We have oldest brother Owen Wilson, Francis, played by Owen Wilson. We have Peter, who's the middle child. He's played by Adrian Brody. And Jack, the youngest, who is played by Jason Schwartzman. They had become distanced from each other for over a year since their father died, and they are now reunited in India. This was Francis's idea to reunite the two brothers, well, him, Peter, and Jack, because their main purpose is to go to India to question their mother as to why she abandoned her husband's funeral and why she abandoned the three. From what we gather, she is now a nun at a Christian convent in the Himalayas, and she has decided to just completely distance herself from her past life. And they're just looking for an explanation. They want her to explain as to why she walked out, why she didn't attend the funeral. Now, of course, you'll probably think that maybe she's got some issues. But then again, when you look at the three main characters, the Whitman brothers, all three of them are faced with inner demons. So this journey through the Darjeeling Limited, they are trying to reunite themselves and to sort of spiritually cleanse out all the negativity that has manifested in all three of them. They're all faced with conflict. Some of the and they're all faced with some pretty serious issues. Now, that does not necessarily mean that this movie is to be entirely taken seriously. There is a good balance of laughter, tears, but it's also a good movie because it centers around the facets of optimism, hope, and that even though a loved one may have passed away, that doesn't mean that everything shuts down. And if you could find the bond between siblings and the unification of family values, then your life will be fulfilled. That's kind of like what the message that is depicted in this movie. Francis is, of course, the catalyst towards the reunion of his brothers in hopes that the spiritual journey will help expunge the devastating grief and to get a better grip of what the family has become. Hope to sort of rectify any kind of bad vibes that has came about. Of course, Peter and Jack are at times annoyed by Francis's controlling ways. Of course, as you all know, Francis, yes, he's spends most of his time in the movie uh, with a bandage, kind of like a bandage headband around him from injuries that he sustained in a head-on motorcycle collision, which had kind of banged him up pretty badly. Then we have, of course, Peter. Peter has a pregnant wife, and he has the fears that he might end up divorcing her, even though he still is madly in love with her. And he's still also going through the grief of of the loss of his father, and we can't blame him for his meltdown or his down spirits. And then you have Jack. Jack is a struggling writer. He also has gone through a horrifying breakup with his girlfriend, and now he just needs to sort of refuel himself. Of course, he also has some sexual lust towards an airline stewardess. So these guys are, even though they are flawed, it makes the characters all the more believable because when it comes to the human race, we're all just a bunch of flawed fuck ups. Okay? No one is neither inferior nor insignificant. We just are totally flawed individuals, and that's what sparks reality in us. We all have issues. We all have insecurities. We all have this big rock glued to our backs, and we may probably have to live with it for the rest of our lives. But that doesn't mean that it has to bring us down. We probably may not be able to fully get rid of the rock, but there is a good way that we could keep it on, but just don't let it wear us off. So that's kind of like what the Whitman brothers are going through. They're going through some heavy issues. And this whole spiritual journey might be the key to help bring them back into each other's lives. and hopefully raise some questions towards their mother's disappearance. In many ways, when I think of spiritual journeys, it kind of reminds me of what happened with the Beatles in 1968. Remember, they were going through a lot of issues with each other. There was a bit of some hostile conflicts that was brewing with the Beatles in 1968. And it was actually George Harrison's idea that they should go to India to sort of see if there could be some spiritual bonding so that they could stay as a group. And of course, this gave them a lot of ample time, to write some songs, which most of them actually did appear on the White Album. Sometimes, spiritual journeys could often come up with positive outcomes. This movie may sort of have some cynical overtones, but the undertones hidden inside proves that life goes on and that we should always try to take one step at a time and to try to hope to move forward instead of just stagnating in one place where you'll be eternally disappointed. This journey is to help them provide the comfort, the regain the comfort with each other, to regain their to regain their faith and love for one another, and to try to expunge all the negativity and all of their conflicts and issues aside. Just throw it out the train window. The baggage that they have in this movie is a metaphor in both figurative and literal, which actually means that they are carrying heavy baggage with them spiritually and also physically. I mean, these guys are wealthy people. But of course, do you think that wealth and money always brings happiness? No, it doesn't. And I think this is also what the point is about this movie. So they travel on train by the Darjeeling Limited until the train gets lost, which is another Wes Anderson symbolic trademark in which he penned with Roman Coppola and Jason Schwartzman, which has some subliminal philosophies within the scene. The tracks thereon explores areas that are deemed unknown as the brothers are lured into the unintentional wit from Francis's partner, played by Wallace Wolodarski, which utter the words, "We haven't located us yet." And what he means by "we haven't located us yet" is a symbol meaning wherever we stop, that's our location. Whether we're actually at our destination or not, our locations is still a complete unknown. The quote is enough to give my brain a bit of a tickle, as it kind of reminds us of a very similar quote taken from the cult classic film Buckaroo Banzai. No matter where you go, there you are. Life Aquatic also kind of has similar references to Buckaroo Banzai. Hey, maybe maybe Wes Anderson must have some sort of a liking towards Buckaroo Banzai. It's certainly no surprise that the three brothers are faced with issues like I mentioned before. Peter worries he will divorce his wife even though he still has feelings for her, Francis has suicidal tendencies. I forgot to mention that, which was a little shed of irony because in real life, Owen Wilson himself has often did at that during during the movie or around that time period when the movie was released. Owen Wilson, of course, was also fought with this real life tragedy in which he too was contemplating suicide, but somehow pulled himself together. Meanwhile, Jack is still moping over his recent breakup from his ex girlfriend as he gets intensely infatuated with the train stewardess played by Amara Karan. So they're all suffering from emotional pain, and this journey is pivotal for them in their quest for peace, enlightenment, and hope. One of the more memorable scenes was when the three brothers finally caught up with, this is like near the end where they caught up with their mother, who is now Sister Patricia Whitman, and they ask her why she did this, why she walked out on her own husband's funeral, and it was simply because she just didn't want to attend, and that she also made the pledge that she was going to talk more about it in the morning. So then when the next morning came, their mother was gone. So that kind of put kind of a bit of a disclosure towards their journey, with the feel that they can never really ever fully trust their mother again, and that it's time to just put the past behind them. So when they abandon their luggage and leave it at the station, that is a sign saying that the luggage that they have is off of them, the burdens are off their back, and they can now be able to live together as one big happy family. They may not have their father anymore, they may not have their mother anymore, but there is one thing that they still have. They have their health and they have themselves. Can authenticity and cartoonish humor be in sync with each other to good effect? Anderson succeeds in doing just that, as it takes sort of like the innocent, somewhat cartoonish humor, and it makes you both laugh and cry without either being too silly or too melancholy. In the end, the Whitman brothers and their journey end their journey with a new lease on life, as they're no longer living in self doubt. With that lesson that life is hard and unfair, and that we must all take it one day at a time, and that with hope and optimism we can win back happiness. There's always a bright light at the end of the tunnel. Anderson succeeds in handling the message clearly and dishes it to the thinking person's perspective. This movie is definitely filled with intrigue, entertainment, humor, tears, but most of all, enlightenment. I think that was the main pivotal idiosyncrasy that makes this movie all the more captivating. Yes. Okay. So, if I was to give this movie a scale out of 10, I would definitely give the Darjeeling Limited a 9. So I guess this ends my writer review. Thank you all for listening in. If you wish to subscribe to my channel, please feel free to do so. If you wish to leave a comment, go right ahead. Just remember, be kind, be courteous, and please refrain from any rude comments and I will be back again with another movie review. So until next time, this is Eric Correct Writer saying, keep watching those movies, and I'll see you around. Goodbye.